and I didn't know what I got into. Got up there as my brother. He had went in the year before I did, went up through Africa and all up through there, Italy and up through there, you know. And it's him. He'd come home to the States and got married. He was an officer. And we spent the night together there.
That's neat.
Yeah, and he taught me out of I had my paratrooper boots on, and he taught me out of my paratrooper boots. You know, these dress boots. And we spent the night, and after that, we got together several times while we was over there. You know, he had a Jeep, he could come and get me, and we done a few things together. And I thought that was odd, you know, he got to asking some of my outfits, you know, if he knew me, you know, and they did, and said, he's here with us.
Wow.
Yeah, and that happened.
Wow. Catch up with your brother.
Oh, yeah.
But give us some more, maybe some other stories that were great experiences, whether there or since other things have been important to you since you've been home.
Well, you didn't get that part of it, did you, about my break-in? Did you want that?
You can tell it if you like.
Yeah, well, I guess I built a home. Did you get about the trustee?
Yes, sir.
Is that on there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Then after I got back home, I built a home. My mother lived with me. I lived with her. She passed away in 1975. And I lived 6 years before some men came and broke in on me one night. And I had a little pistol that I shot with, and they would, if they'd have been in the doorway of my bedroom, I would have hit one of them right in the chest, because a criminal investigator come in there the next day and found the bullet over there right before it would have went right in one of them's chest, but they had swung the door from the side, you know, and that pinned them down, and I never did know who done it. And they never did catch the ones who done it, but I thought that was a pretty good experience, you know. It was sort of frightening. And then I moved in with my brother after that, and been living with him for 22 years, I guess. Yeah, but the main thing now I want to tell would be about my Army reunion.
Yes, sir.
And having one this year, Colorado Springs, it'd be the 27th reunion. And I've been to 8 of those reunions, I believe it's 8. I've been to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I've been to Orlando and Springfield, Missouri, and to, a few more of them down in Georgia, down Fort Benning, close to Columbus, you know. And Atlanta, we had one in Atlanta. A couple in Nashville, we had reunions. And of the group, my company, I guess on that picture I gave you, was about 125.
Okay.
And I hadn't seen any of them except one person. He came by right after the war, and he was a salesman from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And we still stay in touch. He was our mailman for the company mailman, really, and of course he jumped and everything like in combat too, you know. And he lives in Charlotte, North Carolina now. But he'd come by to see me every once in a while. My mother he'd spend the night with me, and she would fix meals for him, you know. I believe he sold Sanders or something like that, and he'd always mail her back a box of candy or something, you know. But he'd spend the night, and we'd sit up and talk all night, yeah. And he comes to the reunions too. And but there's about 40 people that was in my company that has attended the reunions that I have attended, you know. And there might be a few more, but I think that's about all of them. Mm-hmm. Quite a few of them gone, deceased, you know, and everything. And some probably just didn't come, but we always enjoyed our reunions, just like a big happy family. Mm-hmm. And some of those people that came was the one that died. He's the first one to come to see me besides the mailman I was telling you about, and Captain Phillips from Anderson, Indiana. And they had 10 children, and his name was Bill White, Maurice Bill White. And then there's one by the name of Zebrowski, George Zebrowski, that he and his wife, they always tended. He's deceased. But I still stay in touch with their wives, you know, the ones that's dead. And Lawrence Coonsey, he's lived out in California. He come to them, and he's dead. Bill D. Huff, the man that was head of the first jump I made in the, you know, what would you call them? In other words, the one that you know, like
first jump, like a jump master kind of thing.
Yeah, jump master, I guess you'd call him. Yeah, jump master. But anyway, he's one that comes to all the reunions, and he was promoted from sergeant to officer in the field. In while I was out, I don't remember where. I believe it's after. I believe he's still with us through Holland. I believe he's promoted later after that to an officer. Yeah. And then there's, well, I'm just not, Sergeant Sessions, he attended, one that, you know, and Johnny Sapola, little boy from Rochester, he's always my closest buddy. And he got wounded, and just a little flesh wound. And he got to come home for it. I think he had to have 85 points. I had 80, and that gave him a little flesh wound. I kid him about that now, you know. I think he come home a few days before I did.
Yes.
And and then there's John Jansen, and they was up in Milwaukee. A lot of those boys in my company were from Milwaukee that came to Fort Benning early, you know. But in my outfit, I believe somewhere I had a map once that showed every state in the United States was represented in the 101st Airborne, or in my regiment. In my regiment, yeah. There's one from each state. Of course, a lot of them had quite a few more, you know. Yeah. And but
so they've been some neat friends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just like a big happy family, and still, when we get together now, I probably won't get to go to any more. And see, I would have gone. I didn't know about them until about 5 or 6 of them had passed.
Right.
And it's hard for me to go on the long trips. You know, I went by plane once going to go to Springfield, and got to Memphis. Went to Nashville, caught the plane. Got to Memphis, no plane for a wheelchair. You know. They had a little walk-on plane that went there, and so they had route me through Kansas City, and from Kansas City back to Springfield, limousine service, you know, and it took us longer. I could have drove in about 10 hours, maybe less, and it took us 24 hours to get there. My nephew was with me, the one that, and we like to never got things straightened out there in Memphis, you know. They offered for us to come back to Nashville, but we decided to go on, you know. We missed part of the reunion.
Wow.
And that's the only time I'd been on planes, say, since the last jump.
That's your last jump.
And the last one since. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Other significant people. You've mentioned your nephew a couple times. You mentioned your niece in passing.
Yeah.
But obviously there's been many people in your life along the way, not just your military friends. You mentioned your brother that you live with.
Yeah, I've got a lot of more of the military friends there, but people who meant a lot to me was people who really got in behind me when I was running for trustee, you know. A lot of them had a coach Vickers, that coached me in high school, and he was with New York Life Insurance Company. And he came and was going to teach me the insurance business. And then when I decided to run and got elected, he said, well, you'll be busy as this. And so we dropped that part of it. But I thought a lot about that, you know, about him coming all the way from Nashville. I believe that's where he's living in, Nashville, to teach me the insurance business. And, of course, there's so many county commissioners. When I was trustee, we had to report when the county court would meet, you know, commissioners, and we didn't, in our little courthouse, we didn't have elevators, but it's upstairs where they had the meeting, and those people would carry me up and down the steps, you know, and of course they'd change positions, and I lasted on forever there, you know, and I like to warm them all down. I guess I wore them all down, but and my brother-in-law now, he's Eugene Henley. I told you about one of my sisters, Marion Henley. He meant an awful lot to me because he went to the first reunion with me, and we would squirrel hunt together, and he would go scout out the woods, and they would find where the squirrels were cutting and things like that. And they'd place me in there, and I'd kill about as many squirrels as any of them, you know, in good woodlands and things. And I mean, and I would come to Chattanooga. He lived in Chattanooga. And he worked at DuPont. And when he retired, I would come, well, even before he retired, I'd come over and pick him up. We'd go out to lunch and everything, you know. And so and I had another brother-in-law, Ben Harrison, meant a lot to me, too. He married my other sister here. And Charles Bolden, another brother-in-law, I told you about going in on him up there in England. He was, before he married my sister, you know. Yeah, and he's meant a lot to me. He was in the lumber business there in Grootley Logger. And so I could just name them from now on. My whole family has been an inspiration to me, you know, and kept me going. I've had no problems. Plenty of problems, but nothing I couldn't, you know, handle because I've had so much love in life, yeah. And
if it's at all possible, with the time that you've been through in the service, in government service, with your, you know, as a trustee, etc., elected position, if it's at all possible, what does freedom mean?
Freedom is what we fought for. And I wonder about wars. Hey, I've got that down here. I'm going to tell my idea. That we don't know about all these wars, whether they're necessary or not. We have to leave that to somebody who knows more than I do, whether it's necessary or not. But for freedom, I'd go back and fight today, you know, if it'd take me. Yeah. And I wrote another little article about that, and to be able to go to the church I want to go, to the schools you want to participate in, go with. To me, that is freedom. And being able to talk to you here today cuss you a little bit if they want to. That's freedom. And I understand the other countries that they can't do that, say things they want to. I know we don't need to say a lot of things I do say about people or anything, you know. Well, it's just nothing like freedom. And that will be, I think we'll keep it here. We're going to fight for it. And what do you think about freedom?
Not much.
It's not. Oh, you don't want to talk. Oh, that's right. I'm on tape, Elma. Yeah.
You're not going to fool me.
Well, okay. But
any other
I'm
thoughts,
sure.
Any other closing thoughts that you just really like to share as we wrap up our time together?
Yeah, I'd like to, thank all these participating in it. Channel 3 and First Tennessee, I believe they're pretty good Vol fans. And I am too.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, I went up there, started going in 1938, and after I got hurt, I got season tickets and went up there. And also Erlanger, they've been helpful, and well, they're the ones doing it. Yeah, and Zach, of course, and all of it.
Congressman?
Yeah, congressman. All of them who did they have to vote this? I mean, I figured it. Or one man, this is all Congress. Congress. They're doing this all over the United States. I understand. Yeah.
Yes, something similar.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I'm gonna get a copy of this if I can, and maybe have a copy made and send it to my organization. Tell them all to get into it. And
very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Any other closing thoughts or you'd like to share? Are you okay?
Well, if I can't think of them if they are, but I'm sure they're there. Come to me when they get headed out.
Get in the van.
Yeah. That's why didn't I think it? Let me check my notes here just a minute. I want to tell you that during this time, when I went in basic training, my dad got sick, age of 48. I got to come home, stay 20 days with him. And he was in one of the hospitals over here where he died. And my brother was already in Africa going up there, and he didn't know my dad was dead. He told us not to let him know anything when he left. And I might have been the one who told him when I met him over there about Dad being dead, And so, of course, he left my mother with, let's see, there's 7 children all of us, so it'd been 5 at home, still at home, She had no education much, maybe 8th grade. But she did, at that time, Social Security had started, and she did get a little Social Security. Mm-hmm. And I was able to give her a small allotment. My brother's offer, he gave her a little more. And she raised all the children on that, and I had to hand it to her. She was an angel. And my dad, I sort of think, that's one thing about war. It will affect the parents more than it does the boys participating in the fighting, I think, because I don't know that contributed to my dad's death, but it could have, I think, because he died. He was a coal miner too. He was a coal miner, and he had been injured a couple of times, but he was all right at that time, but just took sick and died while we were in service there, and at age 48. And my mother raised all the rest of the children, and she died at the age of 74. And I had good parents, and good brothers and sisters, and a good family. And now I've got lots of nephews and nieces. that's just as good to me as my brothers and sisters were. All of them had children. I believe there's 15 nephews and nieces. I believe 8 boys and 7 girls, and they all just love me. Yeah, and I love them. Yeah, well, I think that's all I need to say. Yeah.
Okay. What that picture is?
This is a picture that was taken of my Company C of the 501st Airborne Regiment when we first landed in Lambarn, England. And on this picture it says somewheres in England. And that's just a few days after we landed that this picture was taken. And it is the original picture. This is my company here at Company C.
Just a second.
Finally, it's possible for first-hand stories like this one to become part of American history. To see other accounts of veterans and support personnel, and someday maybe even the story you just saw, visit the Library of Congress website. If this is your story, thank you. A grateful nation owes you more than we can know or even imagine. On behalf of Channel 3 Eyewitness News, 1st Tennessee, and Erlanger, thank you for participating in the Veterans History Project.